Professor Stanley Wolpert. You already know him, he's from the University of California, Los Angeles.
Thank you once again, Dr. Parker and Dr. Price, for congratulations for doing this remarkable 11th International Kashmir Peace Conference. I hope, as I said yesterday, that it will be the last that has to be done. A permanent peaceful resolution to Kashmir's conflict requires solemn diplomatic agreements between India and Pakistan that have the full support of Kashmir's most popular leader. The United States should do whatever it can to expedite the resolution of the Kashmir conflict, which has taken a greater toll in human suffering and wasted resources than any other South Asian catastrophe since the partition of British India in mid-August 1946. For more than a decade after the Kashmir conflict was first brought to the UN Security Council by India, heroic efforts were made by the UN Commission on India and Pakistan to resolve the conflict, either by a UN monitored plebiscite or by dividing the state of Jammu and Kashmir into its dominant ethno-religious units. Hindu Jammu and Buddhist Ladakh owing to India, the Muslim-majority Kashmir Valley. To Pakistan, India adamantly refused to accept any of those Security Council resolutions, however, unless, quote, Pakistan first vacated its aggression, as Prime Minister Nehru did. At the Shimla Summit in 1972, following the Third Indo-Pakistani War, Pakistan agreed to settle all its differences with India through bilateral negotiations, ruling out either unilateral altering of Kashmir's line of control or any multilateral attempts to help resolve the conflict. Independent nationhood for Kashmir has often been mooted, initially proposed by former Maharaja Hari Singh, who hoped Kashmir might become the Switzerland of South Asia, and more recently by young Azadi leaders. Since neither India nor Pakistan supports that idea, however, it lacks much prospect of allowing Kashmir to survive as an autonomous national entity, thus remaining an implausible country. Many Pakistanis still insist upon a UN-sponsored plebiscite in Kashmir's valley, believing it would result in a majority of Kashmiris voting to join Pakistan. There is, however, growing impartial evidence to indicate that Kashmiris today would most probably prefer to remain independent of both Pakistan and India if that option were offered to them. The prerequisite to enduring peace for Kashmir must first of all be commitments by both India and Pakistan to the process of building trust through effective Indo-Pakistani anti-terrorist cooperative agreements and mutual security acts that include coverage for all of Jammu and Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, and the northern region. Once trust has been restored and owned, if Kashmiri leaders agree, the most realistic, immediate potential solution to Kashmir's conflict appears to be conversion of the current line of control into the northern international border between India and Pakistan. Accepting Kashmir's current line as the new Indo-Pak border, however, is not to suggest that India continue its Praetorian military occupation of Kashmir's Vale. India should withdraw its army as quickly as possible, ending all curfews and removing all barbed wire fences and concrete barriers from that border across which Kashmiris from both sides must feel free to travel without fear or intimidation of any kind by paramilitary police, either Indian or Pakistani. The people of Kashmir should enjoy every freedom and all the human rights and privileges of every free state in India and Pakistan. They must always be free to elect representative governments that will hire well-paid Kashmiri police to maintain the region's peace without molesting or offending the Vale's populace. quote, "No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile," Article 9 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights appropriately proclaimed. The new border between Azad Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir state should be as porous and open to friendly human and commercial contacts and travel between Muzaffarabad and Srinagar and Jammu, as is the border between Canada and the United States of America. Tourists and refugee pundits should be welcomed back to Kashmir's lovely vale to fill every Srinagar houseboat and hotel with peaceful families instead of Indian Army officers and soldiers. Only then may Kashmir finally reclaim its long-lost status of paradise on earth. For peace to emerge, India's Armed Forces Special Powers Act must immediately be repealed so that tragedies like that which shocked the world and sparked protests throughout Kashmir in May 2009 over the murders of 22-year-old Neil Farjan and her 17-year-old sister Asya Jan in Shopian's shallow River Rambi will never again occur. Whenever peace appears imminent, extremists of both sides launch their ugliest assaults till the champions of peace timidly withdraw or die. So once again last month, 17 Kashmiris, 3 just teenagers, were shot dead in the vale by Indian forces, unnerved by stones thrown at them and cries of excitement from the lungs of thousands who marched to protest the death of a 17-year-old boy killed by a tear gas canister fired at close range by security forces in his fight. The security forces of Jammu and Kashmir have been strictly instructed to respect the rights of the civilian. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh stated during his most recent visit to Jammu and Kashmir state. A few days later, in response to that clear reprimand from New Delhi's wisest leader, one Indian soldier was arrested there, an Indian Army major suspended, and a colonel removed from his command. But this July 5th, paramilitary officers chased Muzaffar Ahmed Bhatt, firing shots after that fleeing teenager who jumped into a drainage canal to get away. Though he could swim, at dawn his body was found floating in the canal. As long as such deadly attacks by Indian forces continue, there will be no peace in Kashmir. The ceasefire agreed to between India and Pakistan 6 years ago must be enforced throughout Kashmir's vale itself. Then, after cross-border Pakistan-supported terror and internal Indian martial killings have stopped, all the shrouds of fear and hatred can be lifted from the hearts and minds of Kashmir's population. Indo-Pakistani cooperation should also reduce the most favored nation status. Every tariff on Congress should moreover address the vital issue of Indus border sharing and availability, which has of late again become a source of potential conflict as India rushes to complete the Kishangarh Dam in Kashmir. India and Pakistan should also open every university and professional institute in both nations to qualified students from each other's campuses, stimulating education and cultural exchanges in every field of social, scientific, legal, and medical sciences. Both nations should encourage South Asian tours of popular music of peace, like that of Salman Ahmed's Sufi rock band Jinnah, and the free exchange of books and newspapers, as well as magazines. Freedom of education, culture, and the press, as we know, is as important in keeping civil democratic societies alive as our free and fair elections and transparently independent judiciary. I very much hope that when President Obama visits India this November, he will assure Prime Minister Manmohan Singh of America's firm commitment to assist him in any way possible to expedite resolution of the Kashmir conflict. By then, if Pakistan has brought to justice all those terrorists who trained and armed the 10 Mumbai killers, reclaiming India's treasure, and if India's military in Kashmir have started their drawdown and ended all attacks aimed at unarmed civilians, then perhaps by this year's end, Kashmir's long-suffering 15 million people will finally find themselves on their way forward as peace, justice, and human dignity bloom again throughout that most beautiful state. Thank you.